Hello everyone, thank you for watching today's video, which is about treating back pain or any pain really in our Thai massage treatments. Almost a couple of weeks ago now, I was running an advanced workshop for previous students of mine, Thai massage for back pain. It was a 4-hour afternoon where I just shared a few extra techniques for their toolbox, basically. But we started off just chatting a little bit on kind of what our observations are in terms of people coming to see us for a session. And there's a couple of things that became apparent. One, and I for sure also have been observing this, is that especially sort of since the start of the pandemic, people seem to be reporting all sorts of quite random pains that have appeared in their body. And sometimes they are even quite clear in their mind that that is somehow related to the pandemic and the circumstances around that and how that's affecting them in their life. And sometimes they're not so clear about that. But they might even refer to something that has also been going on for them that might have been circumstantial to the current challenging times. And yeah, often kind of people come with these random pains that are not really rooting from any particular injury or a particular condition, or there isn't really any inflammation. As such, there isn't really anything kind of crazy going on, and yet they're suffering from quite severe pain. So that's kind of one interesting observation, and that's actually always been the case. And those of you maybe giving treatments for quite a while will feel like this is a familiar story. Only that maybe we're observing that a little bit more right now because we have these heightened anxiety levels going on and these extreme, I don't know, but these ongoing challenges of the current times. And another thing was that was kind of really coming up is, what do we actually really do when somebody has like a really severe condition and feeling concerned that maybe we could make it worse or hurt them or, kind of just, people weren't quite sure what maybe might then be an appropriate protocol, an appropriate course for the treatment. And both those things actually speak to the same thing, that there is some kind of level of trauma at play in their body. Because if somebody is suffering from a quite severe condition, very good chance is that there is some underlying trauma that has evolved over potentially a very long time and manifested in the body in some form of disease, chronic condition or chronic pain. There's some kind of story around that, and it might even be that the severeness of that chronic condition is then in itself also quite a traumatic experience. And these random pains that people might be observing around the current times or just in general anyway, but that are not actually really related to anything in particular injury or anything such, that also is most of the time to do with some story, something happened, an experience that was too overwhelming for their system and for their body to kind of really process, and therefore it found some kind of hook in the body and turned into this pain. And so whilst my intention obviously in that workshop was it was a short workshop of a course that normally takes 5 days, was really to share some extra tools, some extra techniques, literally for my previous students' toolbox, which hugely they appreciate. So from time to time, I run those workshops. And in fact, some of that, part of the group was actually online, part of the group was at the studio. So that was a little bit of an experiment. And so I wanted to also keep it really, really quite simple to make sure that everybody was walking away from that workshop understanding the actual moves and techniques that I was sharing. But really, I kind of sort of walked out of that, and I know that in my work too, but we walked out of that workshop really thinking about what really matters, and does it really matter having all of these different tools? Yes, that comes in handy, having 123 different techniques to free up the, C1 and C2. Yes, that will come in handy at some point. But what was actually really more important was to acknowledge the fact that there was some kind of story at play. So very often these pains, and you can quite easily get a sense of that, have some kind of muscle tension, muscular tension at play, and fascial tension. And that's a good indicator that it's muscle tension usually is really like an anxiety and emotional tension in the body. And so the best we can do in a treatment is to really just suggest to the body to let that go. And they may or they may not release that at that moment in time. They will not if they're not quite ready to yet, and they may if they are. And they may follow that suggestion that we give through our touch. But what is way more powerful is that we actually acknowledge and take note of the fact that these are very likely some form of protective holding patterns that the body has built up around that story that it was not quite able to fully process whenever that challenging experience might have happened. And that might have been way in the past, or might have been quite recent. To just give some acknowledgement to the fact that maybe that tension, that holding in the body, it was the body's way of coping and maintaining safety and feeling safe amongst the kind of storm that was going on around them. And that with bringing awareness to these stories and acknowledging them, we are kind of creating a safe space. And that is really what is the most important thing when people come to us suffering from chronic conditions and chronic pain. When people come to us anyway, full stop, but particularly dealing with pain, I feel. Be aware of the stories that the body builds around the pain and the challenge, and eventually it gets embedded in the body. The story, the script of the pain gets embedded and embodied, and the person will literally carry that around forever unless they find a way to rewrite that story. And in order to rewrite any of that story, it is key that we hold a safe space for that person. So holding a safe space where the person may feel comfortable enough, trusting in themselves, trusting in you, trusting in the process of what was happening just there, trusting in the experience of the story, to eventually rewrite that story. And that will take several sessions. It's not something that always happens like this, and it can happen in 20 minutes, done, or it might require 20 sessions. And And for us, as the facilitator of that safe space, to never aim for the 20 minutes, to be perfectly okay with it may or it may not happen in that session. As soon as we start pushing for it, we are already not creating that safe space anymore. We want to give the person a chance to re-experience a movement, maybe. So very often have people, and there's maybe something familiar, holding a lot of tension in the neck area, right? And that is a classic area where people are really building like a protection mechanism tension. So whatever has challenged them, they need to hold themselves together and upright and strong in some kind of way, and they build up this protective armor around their neck. Maybe they did have an injury at some point and it feels a very vulnerable area, and so they, whilst the injury is actually well healed by now, they continue protecting that area. It could be a whole bunch of different reasons, different stories, different narrators of these stories. And maybe we are able, with just suggesting the smallest movement for the smallest release, for the person to re-experience that movement in the neck. For the body and the nervous system to realize, okay, I can actually stay safe while I'm experiencing this movement. And so that movement doesn't become a trigger anymore, but we normalize it. And we don't need to have super amazing, clever 123 different techniques to do that. I think everybody who's done even their basic training will have something in their toolbox. And it's just more about our attitude in our touch, the really just suggesting hands holding that safe space for something to maybe begin to shift. That's all. And so it's quite incredibly simple in some way, and maybe also really not that easy at all. Maybe we are able to allow our client to perceive a sensation for what it actually is, rather than mapping it through the filter of the story that they have been carrying around for many, many years. Obviously, through the touch and through the movement in our body work, we create a lot of sensory input. So that is amazing to really help people to redefine their relationship with those sensations, and to realize that they are okay, they might even be nice, and they're not related to that past challenge anymore. So we're rewriting the stories, we're writing that in the body, in the nervous system. Maybe, just to help them to understand that it is okay. It is safe. Maybe even realizing there is no pain. It was just that we've kind of turned into the story of the pain so much that to us it became pain, and that is very real. It's not something that people like just make up, It's a quite real sensation for them at that moment in time, because that is how it's in their body. It's embedded in the body. And the nervous system is just not able to discriminate that sensation properly anymore, and so perceives it as pain, because that is the story, that is what we kept telling ourselves forever and ever. So therefore we have pain in the neck, or when we move our head too much, I don't know, whatever it might be. I'm simplifying that a little bit. And so it's about finding a way to slowly understanding the actual narrative of that story. If there isn't actually an injury or any inflammation anymore, if it has all healed, then it's about understanding and in a way correcting the perception of that sensation, of it just not actually being pain, but maybe a fear or an insecurity or just simple pressure or just what a movement actually feels like. So we are teaching the nervous system to perceive sensation and sensory input for what it actually is, which gets distorted when our bodies have been in overwhelm. So this is something very important to understand, because maybe we might not believe somebody when they go on and on and on about how painful something is, or that they have this chronic pain, or we sometimes might just go, don't be so silly, or that's just all over the top, it just doesn't seem very rational, or kind of things like this. But for them it is, because their body has embedded that story for it to become a reality in their body, and that was their only way to cope with that overwhelm at that moment in time, because maybe it was lacking a balanced and healthy resilience at the time, and therefore something was too much or too fast, too something, and it overwhelmed the body and created a whole story of pain. And we have an opportunity through our touch, through this work, through the connection, to turn that, or to help people, and we can't turn it into the story, but to help people to facilitate a safe space where they feel comfortable enough to change the narrative of that story to the innate story of health that is already available, as that is really the blueprint, the starting point. So it's kind of like helping people to come back to that place. And maybe in that process, the person may realize that that particular story, that pain even, is actually no longer serving them, because they realize the true sensation of it isn't actually pain. The neck is able to move, and that is safe to move it. And it's going to take a little bit of time, because the body managed to carry that around for a long time. So we need to bring quite a bit of patience to this process of just bit by bit releasing that and letting that go. And we continue just nourishing the body and the nervous system in that sense of safety, so that bit by bit the body can rewrite that story. And that's really, really an important point to bear in mind. It really is in the body. It's held in the body. It's not something that we make up in our minds. And so there is such power in body work, in working with and through the body. And it doesn't always have to be with touch, of course. That's my passion. For me, that's my route in through touch. And those of you who train with me, I guess it is also for you, but it might not be exclusively, and that's okay. There are other ways in. But yeah, so it's like I started off with, it's great to have obviously more tools, more choices, more vocabulary in that toolbox. Yes, for sure. So we can get more and more specific in our therapeutic application. And at the same time, we just need to hold a safe space. Yeah. So maybe I should do a whole workshop just on that. I don't know, instead of, sharing more techniques and moves. I don't know. But anyway, let me know if you have any questions, any thoughts, observations on that. As always, love the conversation to carry on. You can comment below this video, regardless of where you might catch it. If you do catch it on my YouTube channel, feel free to subscribe to it. I try more or less once a week or so to add something new here. And if you're catching it somewhere on Facebook where somebody might have shared it, maybe come and visit my Facebook page, Hadadi. And yeah, if you found this useful and helpful in some way and feel like you have colleagues, people in your environment that you know might find this interesting, please do share it up. Thank you. Thank you for that. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you, connecting with you, hearing from you soon. Take care.